Well, I was always interested in writing when I was younger, and but I didn't have the temperament to write like all the time or a lot. So when I eventually went to college, I got more into journalism type stuff, and plus I played music, played in bands and stuff, and so eventually at the time there was kind of a culture that did fanzines or handmade magazines for music, about music and about art and stuff like that. So I started doing a fanzine. And it was called the same thing. It was called Rift at the time, and so I did that for a couple of years while I was playing in a band, and it was a good way to connect with other bands to play together and all that kind of stuff. And then because of that, I kind of got into printing. So I ended up my career ended up being more in printing, doing graphics and stuff for printing for a printing place, and eventually got into the CD DVD market and designing packaging for CDs and DVDs for music. Kind of stayed in the same vein. And while I was doing that, the magazine thing came up again. So I started publishing Rift magazine in, I think it was 2005 or so, and we did 25 published print issues, and then it went after 4 years. It went to all online type of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's not a full time. It's just a part time thing for kind of for fun and stuff. But I have a group of writers that I work with that write stuff for me and get it up there to help promote all local music and art and stuff. So.
Why Rift?
The name? It was kind of a weird. I had written a story that had there was a character named Mr. Rift in it, and I thought the name was cool, and that's basically why I used it. It didn't really have a meaning or anything, so just as it was a cool name.
So you still write some?
Yeah, I do. I usually write a couple interviews a month, and then sometimes I'll do like an editorial type thing, just some general observations about music and art and stuff like that.
Everything has a vision these days, but this seems like the sort of labor of love that really would have a vision.
Yeah.
Can you say a bit about what that is?
The vision? I mean, just to basically just promote local music. There's a lot of online publications that cover stuff that happens outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul and Minnesota, but we just try to focus kind of in on that type of thing because there's so much going on here as far as music and art and stuff. That's just, you can actually do that without running out of stuff to write about.
Now, I remember from looking at your website that you're positioning yourself vis-a-vis some larger entities than Rift that also cover music. And I'm curious, what sort of thing is the thing you do that nobody else is quite doing?
I tend to put up stuff that maybe other places wouldn't put up because it's kind of more crowded on that end. Like if you get a city pages or whatever, they only can write about a certain amount of space where they're paying. So it's easier for us to like pop up like tracks of bands that maybe aren't so well known or might not get the exposure elsewhere.
And so you're actually giving, just like a radio, you're actually giving people play in addition to commentary.
Yeah, exactly. So we post videos because with the internet you can do video and you can actually post songs where we don't have to do a lot of writing, so it makes it a little easier to put more stuff up there too as well.
Yeah. So, do you have to be selective somewhat yourself?
Somewhat. What I basically do is I have a group of writers. So stuff that I'm not sure about, I put on a list and send out to the writers to see if anybody else wants to pick it up or whatever. But otherwise, I mean, at least give some mention if somebody's doing something, releasing an album or something like that. It's not as much of a tastemaker as some of the other stuff where it has to be, perfect to me, because somebody might enjoy it out there. It gives a chance for more people to hear stuff.
Yeah. So what has this project done for you? I mean, what place does it have in your life that you do this? What kind of opportunities does it give you? In addition to the inevitable annoyance of, pestering people to get stuff in, and I'm sure some editing and all that.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird where I'm okay with if I get one nice email from a band or whatever thanking me to for putting something up or whatever, or now I can kind of tell with the internet, I can kind of tell how many people are reading it, and just some of those things that show that it's actually being read or whatever seems to help me move along. So it doesn't have to be a ton, just a little bit of recognition without anything else, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I was a little surprised looking at the history you post on the website that you mentioned an aspiration to go back to a print version. It seems if there's ever a topic where the internet has it all over print,
yeah,
it's this music stuff where you can actually sample things and stick them on and so forth. Can you say a little bit about print versus internet for the kind of thing you're doing?
Well, since I'm in I work in the CD, DVD business, and that business is kind of leveled off right now, and now it's going kind of back to vinyl is kind of becoming a big thing. So I was just kind of figuring the next step of that would be even print publications. I think a lot of bands do vinyl just because it's more of a special now, where if I did put out a print issue, it would promote the website just because it was kind of a special thing that people wouldn't, like, oh, this is cool, I mean, more of a collector thing than not being before, where it was just a every time thing, whatever.
So this would be a special issue,
yeah,
not
exactly,
a regular. Yeah. You're pretty much committed to continuing web publication.
Yeah, I wouldn't
the
want to
main
do print all
way.
the time.
No, having done print on a couple of publications, 3 actually, for a lot of years, I'll never touch one of those things again. Although I know the magic of it coming in the mail too. It's fascinating. So how do you get your writers?
Just through the internet posting, and it's usually kind of a turnaround, like, because people will do it for a while and they'll get disinterested, and I kind of slowly filter through them, I think. So I have a couple that are pretty regular, and then there's always periods like in the summertime where people just stop having interest in writing. But just kind of through the internet and through other people, put out a request, and I'll get a couple hits on people that want to write. So, and the last year or so, I've had a couple like high school writers that just are trying to want to get into music writing or whatever, and they're trying it out. Mm-hmm. That works out well.
So the picture I get is that the Twin Cities music scene is terrifically vibrant and explosive and all those words like that. How come? What is it about the situation that makes there be a lot of music and a lot of new stuff tried and so forth?
I'm not totally sure. I mean, I think a lot of people think it's the winter. You don't have time to do stuff, so you go inside and you make music, and because in the winter months it's not as fun to go outside, and but it just seems like there's a creative thing running through here, and even Duluth, and a lot of bands from everywhere. So.
Mm. And is it possible to make it in the music business here, or is this always a matter of waiters and hat factory people, and like in theater?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple bands that have been steadily that seem to do like a Cloud Cult and think of a few others here. The band Low from Duluth, and hip hop stuff, the Doom Tree and Rhyme Sayers. They all have artists that are full-time musicians. So there's a lot of part-time musicians too, but I mean, there's a few that end up popping out and are able to have a career out of it.
So have you been able to continue your own music alongside of
Just
of this?
sporadically. I just last year I recorded some stuff with a friend of mine that I used to play in a band with, and but not out playing live or anything. Just writing songs and recording and stuff.
So it sounds like this is sort of a labor of love kind of thing,
Totally.
and that there isn't really money in it. How do you keep your goodwill up to do that kind of thing?
I don't know. I mean, there's sometimes when it dips down, but it just like I said, it sometimes only takes one comment or an article that gets read a lot, or a lot of likes on the Facebook clicks or whatever, and sometimes that's all it takes to bring it back up. So it doesn't take a lot. So I just keep rolling with it.
So what level of work does it take to keep something like that going? First of all, how often does it come out?
Well, it's online. It's kind of random, so I can put stuff up anytime. So there's no real time. I try to keep, since there's shows every week and CDs coming out every week, I try to mention those the week of. But I spend like sometimes 5 to 10 to 15 hours a week doing it. So it's not like it's not like 20 hours usually. It's usually a couple hours in the morning, and then sometimes the weekends I'll spend a couple hours entering events and stuff like that.
I see. So, and how does the work divide between what you do and what your staff writers do?
I just have like one person that enters events and stuff like that, and then it depends on what the week, but what I get in. So, I mean, I do all the posting and stuff like that, and like I said, a couple of articles a month, and I try to post about 5 things a week. So, and some of those are just a video or something, so that doesn't take very much time.
Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like, if your writers are feeling like writing, you can just sort of look over their stuff and post it. And if they aren't feeling like writing, then in order to keep the consistency up, you've got to do more stuff.
Yeah, either I'd write something or find something to post.
I'm always particularly interested when somebody says they do interviews, because that's what I do. What's it like doing music interviews, and how have you found that?
I mean, it's kind of it's always come kind of easy, just because I'm always pretty interested in what I'm asking about, so it's pretty easy to think of questions for it. So, and sometimes I want to ask the same question of a lot of the same type of people. So, but it just seems like it's not that hard, because I'm interested in it to come up with questions and want to find out. I kind of want to find out how it works for them or whatever.
Yeah. Anything particular that keeps coming up that sort of is the kind of thing you really want to know about or explore with various musicians?
Well, right now it's kind of the switch from because of the CD DVD thing and the free music aspect of it, as how they make money now, and how that ends up working for them, or what their new ways to market and that kind of stuff, and to actually sell stuff and build to, and keep doing what they're doing and stuff like that.
And what's the consensus on that? Is it going to hell in a handbasket now, the possibility of making money with the amount of sharing that's going on?
Yeah, I think some of it is just people just still doing it because the reason I do write the stuff is the labor of love thing, and then the ones that are actually making it work, they just have to tour a lot, play a lot of shows, and then some of those bands will still sell a lot of stuff but it's mostly when you're out playing. A lot of times it's more more T-shirts and merchandise type stuff than music itself. But they sell a little bit of both, and then they play a lot and just end up touring a lot and being on the road.
So if it depends on T-shirts and things, you've almost got to be a theatrical presence as well as a musician. You've got to look like something. And,
Yeah, you got to be able to sell stuff too.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you think there's a pretty strong push in the direction of kind of conventionalism here, just in order to make any dent in the market, or is there space for really wild stuff on the theory that if I'm not going to make any money, I might as well not make money on something crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a kind of an underground scene that the music's a little more out there and not necessarily, conventional. That might not do anything, and sometimes some of that, kind of hits the right time and it becomes popular or whatever. People like it, but it's harder to sustain that as a long-term type of thing. Mm-hmm. So, but it seems to switch. I know that know people that played in punk bands 10 years ago now play in a bluegrass band, and they switch kind of along with what happens too sometimes too, either because it becomes a older interest or whatever kind of thing. So people switch it up once in a while too.
Right. Now, do you extend over to electronic music and stuff that's either working with sampled sound or wholly produced on on synthesizers and computer keyboards and such like that?
I mean, there's really a mix of music in town, and there is a scene like that too, and some of it's more, it's kind of it's kind of an indie pop type stuff. That's a lot of keyboards and stuff like that. So it really runs the gamut of different styles. So, but it's all there. There's a lot of electronic music as well. Just mentioned Humans Win Recording Studio is over off 29th and right off Johnson Street, and they do a lot of recording electronic type style bands and stuff like that.
I see. And your publication stretches to include all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew a little bit about that because I used to cover the Spark Festival.
Okay.
And some of those folks showed up there together with very academic types. It was kind of a zoo, actually, of people look very much like professors and people with multiple piercings. Do you go to much music?
Not as much as I used to, as far as like going out for music.
Yeah, right.
Just because I'm getting older and I'm kind of an early bird, so it's hard for me to stay out late. I try to hit early events if I can, but not as much as I used to. So, yeah, like 10 years ago, I was probably going out, once a week, and now it's more like once a month type of thing, or every 6 weeks or so.
Well, the 10 to 15 hours a week you're putting into editing your thing, I'm sure, is putting a little bit of a dent in the time you could spend actually listening to music.
Yeah, I wrote a little thing about saying that I don't go out as much, and this is what I do to help promote music since I don't go out as much. So
how does this thing you're doing work with the day job?
It works pretty good because since we do a lot of the local music at the place that I work too, so it's kind of connects in some ways. So that it kind of works out that way. And then I also am quarter owner of the coffee shop Northeast in Minneapolis on Johnson Street, 29th. So I keep myself pretty busy most of the time.
But that is that a performance venue too, or?
We have open mics and we have literary readings, and there's 3 open mics a month, and then the reading, we've had a literary reading once a month now for the last 4 months. So I usually set I'm pretty good at getting people to set them up now, and originally I would set them up everything, and then I would do sound at at the open mics, but I found people do that stuff now, so I don't have to sit around the whole time to do it. So,
So you're a patron of the arts in another sense. I mean, you're supporting literature as well. Is that something you have an interest in, sort of knowing about and being engaged with? I know you're a writer.
Yeah, I mean, I did write. I do have some notebooks full of poetry, and because I do write lyrics for songs and stuff, and ideas for short stories. But like, I've never been able to have enough. To sit down and just be able to do something long form like that. I'd love to be able to. I have plenty of ideas to do it, but I just never have. Like, at least with the journalism stuff, I can write short pieces and get them, have a kind of a focus and get them done. But the longer stuff's been a little harder to do. And in college, I had 2 years of college, and one of them I was doing creative writing for a little while. So I've delved into it, but haven't had enough to step forward on that range. So.
Yeah. Well, again, I expect the 10 to 15 hours a week you're
exactly.
spending with the publication is probably subtracted from time you might spend working on your own stuff. I just 6 months ago, an old friend buried a publication of considerable, longevity and also of considerable importance. I mean, maybe it was the only thing like it around nationally, because he was getting very old and very sick, and it was his thing. Do you see Rift as something that dies with you?
I mean, every month or so, I try to think of my way I can figure out to get my writers to like become more active in it, and I would love to have some younger people kind of take over a little bit and post stuff for themselves and all that stuff, and it'd be nice eventually to do that and let it just kind of go on without me having to touch it as much. That'd be a good goal, but every time I try to step away a little bit, it never gets done the way I want it to. So it's kind of that's the difficult part. If I'm the right person to help out, I think I could do it. But
yeah, the story of Atlas and the world comes to mind there. Passing the publication on to somebody, the sort of destiny. Yeah, but editing. Well, what kind of what does it take to be the editor of a thing like that? I mean, what would the job description be like for the next one?
Yeah, I know it's a little tough because I kind of do a little bit of everything, so it's hard to define in one little thing. So,
well, part of it's flexibility.
Yeah,
then.
exactly.
And the combination of the ability to read other people's writing and to do your own, and to fill in with your own stuff across a broad range. What about the editing part? I mean, the vetting people's stuff before you put it out. How does that end up working for you?
I've been lucky to find a couple writers that just write, well, that I don't worry about it too much. Like I said, I have a couple high school writers. One that just started now, and I mean, I have to go through it a little more, but I try not to be too. I'm kind of a hack editor anyway, but I try to point out things that I don't like or seem kind of repetitive, and luckily with the internet, there's a tool called Grammarly that I pop stuff into, and it kind of tells you some of the grammar issues. It doesn't catch everything, but at least it catches stuff that I usually might not catch. So cleans it up a little bit. I know I don't have to be perfect because it's not a professional thing, but I like to at least be mostly grammatically correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course you have then the program to back up your own intuitions.
Yeah,
Isn't just what I think, but yeah. Now, do you have peers? I mean, are there other people who do publications like this that you can talk to and compare notes with and all that sort of stuff?
I think before had more, and since I don't, kind of go out and do as much as I used to, I haven't connected as much, but so more recently, not as much, but before I think a little more.
I mean, are there like music editor conventions or trade groups?
It probably is, but I haven't really looked into it. So,
Yeah. So, I from my own experience, the question that occurs to me is about the relation between all this and domestic life, because these sort of editing things can suddenly, eat into all sorts of other responsibilities. How's that work for you?
Well, since like I said, I'm kind of an early person, so I usually get to my work a couple hours earlier than I need to be, and work on my, on my stuff there, and then I'm home, 4:30 or so. So I just have one daughter left at home, another daughter in college, so it's not too hard to, keep up with it. So, I mean, there was a couple like over the course of the magazine, 12 years in May, it'll be, I mean, there have been periods where I haven't done as much because my kids had more stuff going on or whatever, so I didn't put too much pressure during certain times to make sure their stuff was coming out every week or anything. So it's kind of fluctuated. I even quit it for a couple months at one time and then brought it back.
So it must have been a big deal when it moved to the internet. Did it feel like an enormously easier thing, or did it feel like a great pain?
It's kind of one of those things that is so far back that I can't remember. Originally, it was a little bit more difficult because there wasn't as many tools to do it. Now with WordPress, and it's a little easier to be able to set up the website and be able to just add. Our original website had kind of an editor thing, but it wasn't as robust as it is now, so it was a lot harder to actually add content to it. So it was a little harder, but now it's a lot easier to do the internet thing right now.
Yeah. Now, if there's somebody watching here who's always been kind of interested in doing a sort of Twin Cities publication, say, focused on dance or spoken word or stand-up comedy or some other, art form that has a lot of manifestations and maybe not a whole lot of coverage at the lower levels of, performance, the non-Prince levels, so to speak. Any advice on how to start up or whether to start up or what to think about?
I think if you're interested in writing about those things, I think there's a few community publications or nonprofit type blogs, Twin Cities Daily Planet and MinPost and stuff like that, where you can post stories like that. So if you want to at least reach an audience right away, writing about something like a comedian that you admire or dance or whatever, I think there's those opportunities. I just didn't think you would get if you started something on something that you had to write a lot of stuff about, it might be harder to gain an audience unless you really pushed it. So it just might take longer to get it out there. But I mean, I suppose anybody could do it, and the blog software is pretty easy now to do stuff. So you could, but it might be easier just to write for other things to start out and put it out there. MinnesotaArtists.org too will take stories about art and music and other stuff too, or genres.
So, I mean, as I think about it as an outsider, and I write enough, I could write on stuff, but if I went to a play, I think I'd sort of know what to do. And book reviews, yeah, I could do book reviews. And when I think about doing music reviews. I mean, I read them and they're pretty interesting, and I feel like, no, I can't do that. So, how does one? I mean, how does one learn to do that sort of thing? I suppose by doing it is one answer, but I mean, what does it take? What kind of education does it take? I mean, not education in the sense of classes, but education in the sense of experience and reading and whatever does it take to do that kind of thing right?
Well, I think, and even now that I don't do reviews as much as I used to, just because it's harder for me to have reference points. But it's almost easier to be younger and listen to a lot of different kinds of music all the time, so you have more reference points to music. Because a lot of times a review just says, this band might sound like this band a little bit, or like this band. And if you have, especially with hip hop stuff, where I don't have like a historical background and haven't listened to a lot of it, I can't compare it to something just because I'm not used to the older styles or whatever. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's nice to have reference points and to be able to compare and contrast other styles or whatever, or different bands and other music.
So basically, you have to hear a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, how much do you hear in a day? I mean, how much do you listen to?
I mean, I probably get stuff about maybe 10 new things coming out a week or something like that. So a couple a day usually I'll listen to it. Not thorough listening, just listen to a song or two from a band or whatever. And if I know a writer that I know likes that kind of music, I'll kind of push it in their direction. Or if it piques my interest, I'll at least get something up about it. Maybe just write a line on it or something.
Mm-hmm. So you're concerned to give things mention even if you don't do
exactly
full scale reviews.
Yep. Exactly.
And is there a big premium on hearing it live?
I mean, for some people, that's the main thing. I think people that have time to go out and do that stuff. So, I mean, yeah, there's totally a lot of people that I just did an interview with a local record label called Modern Radio Records, and their thing was, you have to see a band live to kind of know what they're all about and stuff like that. So, it's a very important part of it.
So, will Riff, do you think, be around in 20 years?
There's probably like a 45% chance. So I'm not sure.
But that puts it up. I mean, Apple doesn't have that percentage. I think. I'm not sure the U.S. government does. Come to think of it.
I mean, if something comes up where I have to concentrate on another project, it could be done next month if I got a different job where I had to work more or something, or some other project came along that I wanted to get involved with. So it's always up in the air.
Thank you.
Yep.